Hey guys, and welcome to the Working Money channel. Remember when I talked about this clip the other day? Most people outside the United States don't really care that the SEC is suing us. This coming from Brad Garlinghouse at DC FinTech 2022. And then he said, no one gives a shit. So this tweet originally posted by Crypto Cowboy here, and then House of XRP responded. I like how he uses profanity more and more when describing his feelings and others regarding the SEC lawsuit. Well, Brad Garlinghouse actually responded to this tweet. He says, my outrage has grown as the litigation has unfolded. There is no recourse, there's no consequence to those that brought this lawsuit. The SEC's pursuit of a policy objective isn't about a faithful allegiance to the law, it is about power. He continues on down here by saying there was no regard for those companies and people that this approach has harmed. We all should be outraged. The SEC has clearly forgotten that the government works for the people. So Brad not sugarcoating it at all and, responding to the XRP community. We usually don't get these kinds of responses from Brad Garlinghouse. He tends to keep his Twitter profile and his responses fairly professional. Nevertheless, I'm glad to see a little bit of emotion here from the CEO of Ripple. Digital Perspectives also chiming in on this. I do wonder if Ripple and Stuart Alderati and the legal team have talked about the evidence found from the SEC and ETHgate. I dare the SEC to not settle, and I can't wait for John Deaton to get subpoena power. So just retweeting out that original Brad Garlinghouse response from that tweet that I just showed you. With regards to ETHgate, I also showed this clip in a video I did a couple of days ago. John Deaton responding to this. Now, this was Christine Moy, okay? And just to give you guys the context, she was formerly at JP Morgan. Now she works at Apollo Global with Jay Clayton. And she was basically talking about how, it's been taking a long time to create a new technology that can send and receive cross-border payments without pre-funded accounts, yada, 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 explaining it as if Ripple didn't even exist. Well, John Deaton calling her out on this on January 1st, 2021, 9 days after the SEC sued Ripple. I said it appeared the lawsuit may have been used as a weapon because it made no legal or logical sense. Listen to her say it was difficult building the technology. The last couple of years for cross-border payments without pre-funded accounts, someone needs to tell her the technology to do exactly what she is so proud to announce was already built in 2012, called the XRP Ledger. And John Deaton also points out that Tim Draper called it on stage years ago. The incumbents use their friends in government to slow down the disruptors. So guys, it is becoming more and more apparent as the days go on that this fringe ETHgate theory that us in the XRP community have discovered has legs and is very provable. So just wanted to bring those 2 points up because despite all this, guys, Ripple is hiring over 300 new employees. So, when you look at a company that is in court with the SEC, you tend to think, uh-oh, this is a problem. And, I think this is why many people who, were investing in crypto during that big spike, during the bull run, were not interested in XRP because, they may have heard about the lawsuit, but haven't actually done enough research to realize what's really going on with Ripple, what's really going on with XRP and the utility in other countries excluding the United States. So this one from XRP Crypto Wolf, want to work at Ripple. They are hiring over 300 employees. While most cryptocurrency projects and exchanges are laying off a large number of employees and contractors, Ripple is doing the exact opposite. And so here's a tweet, the official tweet from Ripple. ICYMI SVP of Engineering, Dev Rajvardhan, spoke with Stack Overflow to discuss lessons learned throughout his career, why he joined the crypto industry, and what we're building at Ripple. If you're interested in using crypto to tackle real-world problems, we are hiring. And so here is the original tweet here from Stack Overflow. Even according to a report from Crypto.com recently, they cut close to 30% of their employees, and Coinbase cut close to 18% of their employees. So these are different business models for cryptocurrency. Ripple, of course, a fintech company utilizing the XRP cryptocurrency to break barriers in finance. XRP trading right now at 48 cents. So the thing I notice is that it's finding nice support and resistance in and around this 48, 49 cent level. You guys can see it has bounced up here, again down here. Some resistance there, some support down here. Again, more support down in here. So it's finding this level here, and traders are fairly comfortable trading XRP in and around that price, so just under 50 cents. Bringing up the Bitcoin chart real quickly here. And again, these are hourly charts. Not too much really to write home about with regards to Bitcoin, $19,100 per BTC, so slightly under that $20,000 mark. But we've been seeing this hovering in and around this area for quite some time now, several months. And I mean, we're just really waiting for a breakout. When I noticed the other day, this is looking like a double bottom pattern kind of pooling down and around here underneath that $20,000 mark. Hopefully we make a move to the upside soon. I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't. In September, here's what we've noticed about crypto VCs. Funding has slightly increased from venture capitalists investing in cryptocurrency startups. So just a quick take here, venture capitalists invested about $2.3 billion in crypto startups in September alone, slightly more than the previous month. And more than 20 new VC funds launched in September, including the Bessemer Venture Partners, North Zone, and Madrona. So what is this telling us? You know, despite the downturn, despite, the fact that we are not seeing large trading volume for much of the cryptocurrency industry, this is the total market cap, so all of cryptocurrency, prices down roughly 70% since its all-time high back in November of 2021. Despite this, despite the fact that the market technically bearish at this moment in time, we've actually seen an uptick in VC venture capitalists investing in cryptocurrency startups, so $2.3 billion. Also notice this from Michael Branch, crypto is playing a major role in the upcoming midterm, so something else that we should be paying attention to for next month, especially if you're American. This from ProCoin News, midterms are coming up and cryptocurrency voters could be why some lawmakers are in office and others are outside looking in. Typically, voters will only vote towards party lines, but in recent years, political scientists have noticed some voters have ventured outside of their political affiliation in order to vote for someone who is pro-crypto. According to a recent survey by GMI PAC, 44%, guys, that is a huge number of people going to the polls this November are considered quote-unquote crypto voters, which means they own or plan to own cryptocurrency. 44%, that's almost half. So, you've got two people going in, one out of every two is voting based on reasons surrounding cryptocurrency. Will cryptocurrency lead the charge to finally break a two-party system? Only time will tell. Here's a tweet just attached to this article. While crypto regulation won't get done until midterms are over, it's good to see that crypto owners are impacting who will be involved in the regulation of cryptocurrency. And I read a stat just today, actually, that I think 99% of Americans at least know about Bitcoin or have heard about Bitcoin. In that same statistic in Canada, 90% of Canadians have either own Bitcoin, know about Bitcoin, have heard of Bitcoin, know what it is in some capacity. So, this is good. From that educational perspective, it doesn't necessarily mean that people understand cryptocurrency as a whole and, how, for example, a company like Ripple can leverage XRP for cross-border payments. It doesn't mean that necessarily, but what it does mean is that crypto is on people's radar a heck of a lot more than it was 4 years ago. So wanted to thank Michael Branch for pointing that out. This one too, guys, from XRP Crypto Wolf. Federal Reserve Governor expresses skepticism about the utility of a US CBDC. So still waffling on the central bank digital currency aspect. Christopher Waller, one of the 7 members of the Fed's Board of Governors, says in a new speech at the Harvard National Security Journal Symposium that he believes developing a CBDC will have little impact on securing the long-term dominance of the US dollar. So speaking in terms of dollar dominance, advocates for a CBDC tend to promote the potential for a CBDC to reduce payment frictions by lowering transaction costs, enabling faster settlement speeds, and providing a better user experience. He says, I am highly skeptical that a CBDC on its own could sufficiently reduce the traditional payment frictions to prevent things like fraud, theft, money laundering, or the financing of terrorism. So he's taken it from that perspective. Those CBDC systems may be able to automate a number of processes that, in part, address these challenges. They are not unique in doing so. Meaningful efforts are underway at the international level to improve cross-border payments in many ways, with the vast majority of these improvements coming not from CBDCs, but improvements to existing payment systems. So, revamping SWIFT, and perhaps when Ripple is free and clear from the shackles of the lawsuit, leveraging RippleNet to source for liquidity, which means a CBDC, a US dollar equivalent, central bank digital currency, would be redundant. We already know the Fed is running on Valente, which is Ripple enabled, so keep that in mind. But while we're speaking in terms here of the US dollar being the reserve currency, changing those factors would require large political shifts separate from CBDC issuance, including greater availability of attractive, safe assets and liquid financial markets in other jurisdictions that are at least on par with, if not better than, those that exist in the United States. The factors supporting the primacy of the dollar are not technological, but include the ample supply of liquid market for U.S. Treasury securities and other debt, and the long-standing stability of the U.S. economy and political system. No other country is fully comparable with the United States on those fronts, and a CBDC would not change that. And I agree with that. The United States is in a very unique position, considering the US dollar is used as the world reserve currency. So an interesting perspective here. Wanted to thank XRP Crypto Wolf just for mentioning that, because this is also what's happening during an IMF panel on CBDCs for financial inclusion. So, now looking at CBDCs around the world, risks and rewards, Kristina Georgieva discusses the benefits of CBDCs, describing them as a new fleet of ships. Listen to this.
We have been talking this last couple of days of the difficult time we are in, that our world economy is like a ship in choppy waters. Well, the image we can add to it is thinking of CBDCs as being a new fleet of ships.
Our world economy is like a fleet of ships in choppy waters, harkening back to perhaps what Bearable Guy meant when he posted this image of the ship riddle. I believe this was back from either 2020 or 2021. Moving out of the storm into a new financial system. So she's talking about it in relation to the world economy. And, I guess we never really considered that. Or, I guess we did consider it. When we were decoding this, we were so laser focused on it just being XRP and Ripple. But, taking a look at the broad picture, the economy, not so much the micro circumstance that Ripple and XRP were in, but the economy could be represented here by, the stormy, choppy waters. How are we going to get out of those stormy, choppy waters? Well, obviously, the implementation of Ripple and XRP. I'm going to play you guys the rest of this clip. Listen to this.
Specially designed to be agile and to be able to withstand a choppier sea. They take people on new voyages. They open up new possibilities. And because they're issued by central banks, they offer more confidence that the ships would move safely.
So again, she's talking about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and how they could be considered a new fleet of ships. Obviously, she doesn't explain how these central bank currencies are going to move across borders, in what capacity, how the liquidity is going to be leveraged. And so this is obviously where XRP would come in. But the imagery, guys, right on point here. Wanted to thank eRob just for pointing that out. A bigger representation of what is going on. And I definitely think that, although Kristina Georgieva was talking about this in terms of central bank digital currencies, I think the metaphor certainly does apply with what is happening with Ripple. So wanted to thank eRob for that. Also this from Sentosumo Saba, ISO 20022 from 2025. This is the banking head from MUFJ Bank, Japan's #1 bank. Let me remind you that in 2019, Japan's banking giant MUFG signs MOU to develop Ripple-based remittances to Brazil. So these guys were not only part of the Ripple steering group in 2017, by 2018, they were developing Ripple-based remittances to Brazil. And I think shortly after that, they became part of that consortium of banks in Japan that were committed to using RippleNet. Now at Sibos, the SWIFT conference, she was discussing cross-border payments. Listen to this.
Now ISO really is, from 2025, an opportunity to remove much of that friction. All banks will work on that same standard, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity for standardization, but also personalization. So you get the data that you want to get to help you build insightful, meaningful MI to drive your own decision making. So it's not because we're here at Sibos that we talk about ISO, but most of us in the industry would feel this allows us to cut cost. This allows us to provide frictionless services and improve the customer experience, and then build from there a next.
All right, and I'm just going to leave it there, basically just talking about cutting costs, removing friction, improve the customer experience. Of course, this is at Sibos. I talked a little bit the other day about how Swift is changing their image here on their Twitter page, sounding a lot more like Ripple. And, some of us were speculating that maybe it's because they're actually leveraging RippleNet for their back-end services. We're on a mission to make international transactions instant, frictionless, and interoperable. And somebody even brought up this point here that the new logo, the Ripple Triskelion logo, would fit very, very nicely in this new Swift logo. So all things that make you go, Also interesting to notice that this is the banking head at MUFJ Bank, Japan's #1 bank, also Ripple enabled. Okay, talking about Swift, a new financial system, CBDCs from Kristina Georgieva. I had to bring this up too, okay? Cryptotainment brought this up, a little tweet thread, and he points this out, okay? WEF, which I could not find a connection to the World Economic Forum, but he points it out here. Maybe he just tagged them in this. Global sanctions event, London and New York. Why are these global sanction events occurring? And do they have to do with something bigger? Before I start off with this, I also wanted to mention that there was recently a global economic sanctions event in Toronto, Canada, September 22nd to 23rd, 2022. And just take a look at this panel, guys. So the Global Affairs of Canada, obviously there. And then Office of Foreign Assets Control, U.S. Treasury Department, Allison Cooper. Also Jim Mulinax from the U.S. Department of the State. Now down here it gets more interesting. Michael Allen from BNP Paribas, a Ripple-enabled client. Also, Rai Ishikusa, Assistant Vice President of Compliance at Sumitomo Mitsui Bank Corporation, the Canadian branch, another Ripple partner. So these guys speaking at the Global Economic Sanctions event in Toronto, that was back in September. There's another one being held in New York and another one in London. So London's is happening in November. New York's is happening in December, if I'm not mistaken. This reminds me of Gary Gensler's Digital Currency Wars simulation. So I'm going to bring that up in a second. So he posts a few more tweets here. Leveraging data efficiency to address sanctions, compliance risks, balancing privacy interests against users' abuses, rulemaking, and other policy initiatives. So he also posts this WEF, Global Economic Sanctions, London in November. And he mentions the UK, EU, Canada, and Asia were all at this must-attend event. That's interesting. They're actually labeling it a must-attend event for sanctions and financial crime prevention experts. That's a little alarming. Going down here in November, London Forum on Economic Sanctions, Recent Developments and Gray Areas, Managing the Cross-Industry Impact of Energy Sanctions and New Investment Prohibitions for Russia. So what I'm thinking, this is an organized group putting these on once a month, at least have been recently. Because there still is a big question mark when it comes to the BRICS countries, Russia, what they're doing. Obviously, the war in Ukraine is playing a part in this too. He goes on to say a national crisis, January 2020. Intro, the Digital Yuan simulation, starring Gary Gensler. So this was actually put on at the beginning of 2020. And we've seen a few clips of this focusing more on the Digital Yuan simulation. Listen to this.
The Digital Yuan is centrally issued by the People's Bank of China and fully backed by fiat reserves. The currency is stored in digital wallets, and payments can be made using a number of applications, including Alipay, WeChat, and mobile banking apps. It's based on a two-tier system where the People's Bank of China issues the currency to select banks and payment providers, and then these institutions redistribute it to individuals and to businesses. The banks serve as nodes in a system, confirming and verifying users and transactions through a mutually understood protocol. All transactions are encrypted, and officials at the People's Bank of China have said they aim to strike a balance between anonymity and national security concerns.
In our scenario, the digital yuan has taken off rapidly and represents 95% of all domestic payments in China. Retail customers have flocked to the currency because of its ease of use and reduced fees. China has also leveraged its Belt and Road Initiative network in order to promote adoption within the business. BRI contractors in the Caucasus, Central Asia, and Africa can quickly and cheaply convert digital yuan to local currency using Chinese banks. In addition to this, China has been leading a campaign to increase adoption of the digital yuan across Southeast Asia, expanding the government's influence over the region as a whole. Today, a growing number of retail payments in Indonesia, Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos are in digital yuan. In our scenario, we see this as a strategic decision by China to bring more countries into its sphere of economic and political influence. So on the stage tonight, you will see a live simulation of a National Security Council's Principals Committee meeting at the White House. The participants will react to breaking news, debate policy options, and try to bring together a set of recommendations for the president. Simultaneously, you'll be able to watch how the crisis is being viewed in the outside world by allies, the media, and the public on the screen. Please note, in tonight's simulation, participants are speaking only in their personal capacities.
So they have a panel of experts here speaking in their possible capacities, including Gary Gensler.
We have been leapfrogged by others, by digital currency, by digital Chinese currency. Why? Because frankly, our central bank has been slow, and there's an appointment coming in January of 22. The president's got to decide whether to change over who's leading the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve runs our payment system. Right. And I think we need to move that Federal Reserve into the modern era.
What about in 5 minutes if we hear that the world is trading oil in this digital yuan? What does that do to our economy? I think we really have to ask some of these questions so we don't have to wait 3 or 4 days for you to call a meeting every time something important happens. Thank you.
Here is the way that I'm going to summarize what I will read out to the president. Per the Secretary of State's recommendation that there will be a POTUS call to President Xi. We're going to talk about new avenues for cooperation. We need a strategy to, one, modernize our SWIFT system. I think the word was harden from cyber attack, from the North Koreans in particular. But we need to develop and present options to the president for a U.S. equivalent of a digital currency, either a private-public partnership or, if the Treasury is able to do it with the Fed, something that would be a public-only option. We need a strategy to resuscitate U.S. financial prowess, I think is the way you put it, Madam Vice President, and examine this idea of secondary sanctions and whether in the overuse of them we've actually undermined our ability to use them down the road. Does that all sound fine to you?
So a lot going on there. That last gentleman speaking, Eric Rosenbach, discussing the private-public partnership. Again, this was January of 2020, only a month after the Ripple SEC lawsuit. And again, this is just a simulation. So they're kind of, throwing ideas around as to how to make the current system more robust. There's this idea also of hardening SWIFT. Fast forward to 2022, and now look at where SWIFT is. We're on a mission to make international transactions instant, frictionless, and interoperable. Basically, the exact same thing Ripple has been doing from the beginning, which begs the question, are they utilizing RippleNet today for their back-end transactions? There was also the issue being brought up by Gary Gensler, revamping the Fed or having the Fed work with the Treasury to come up with some kind of some solution to this digital yuan problem. Well, again, we know the Fed, Ripple enabled through Valente technology, even though they might not be using it today, they are set up and ready to go. Now, this does not address Gary Gensler's position at the SEC. Remember, Gary Gensler at this time, January 2020, was not the head commissioner over there at the SEC yet. It was coming soon, but not at the time of this simulation. Let me continue down here. A news broadcast may be giving us more insight as to why this simulation was necessary.
Breaking news out of Brussels this evening. A cyber attack on SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, has resulted in the theft of $3 billion from commercial banks based in Germany, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE.
So the old system just isn't cutting it anymore. And unfortunately, the trajectory of that is that it's just going to keep on getting worse and worse and worse. And so, yes, we see China with the yuan, but the competitiveness of the US dollar is a matter of national security, and we have to take this seriously and continue to innovate.
Secretary Summers, are you suggesting that the U.S. create our own digital currency, or just that we work on SWIFT, we stick to our current system, but make SWIFT less vulnerable to cyber threats?
We need to make a secure SWIFT. Look, SWIFT is digital. It's all binary. It's all electronic communication. So there's a question about what the definition, what we mean by that. But my proposal is that we harden SWIFT, that we commit with respect to avoiding what other countries see as abuse of SWIFT, and that we make clear that where there are SWIFT transactions involving North Korea or involving other rogue nations, we will use the leverage associated with SWIFT.
So again, this concept of hardening SWIFT is coming from Larry Summers. Lawrence Summers, acting as the Treasury of the Secretary. Makes you wonder, when we fast forward 2 years in the future, why SWIFT has revamped their image, why their logo fits the Ripple Triskelion quite nicely now, perhaps insinuating that this could have been the plan the interim plan, considering SWIFT is not an American body, right? It is an international body based in Europe. And in this simulation, these US officials are brainstorming a way to maintain dollar dominance, thwart the digital yuan. I mean, it does raise more questions, but of course there is one solution that would make a lot of sense. Leveraging Ripple's XRP, it certainly does make a lot more sense, even considering there is now more urgency for these global sanctions than ever. Hey, why not use a proven solution that is already developed? That's just my opinion, but I want to hear what you guys think. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. I always love hearing your comments. See you in the next one, guys.